All right, all right, all right. We are live from the White Claw Hard Seltzer Studios. It's overtime here on this beautiful Wednesday evening here in Knoxville, Tennessee. And we appreciate you spending your Wednesday night with myself, Garrett Armbrust, Caleb DeBusk, as we'll break it all down as Tennessee was on the practice field again for their sixth fall camp as they prepare for the season opener September 5th against Furman in Neyland Stadium. Yesterday we talked about the offensive line. His offensive line coach Glenn Ellerbe met with the media to discuss Tennessee's strengths and weaknesses on the offensive line. Today, we got some good sound bites from the defensive line coach, Rodney Garner. We'll share those with you. And then we'll talk about a player later in the first hour who was mic'd up at practice. There will be a big piece in the secondary and how leadership roles in the secondary can help this defense. And then moving into the second hour, we'll talk about some more national college football news. There's been some NCAA college football rule changes that we'll discuss. Some that I like and some that I don't like so much and think are going to be pretty difficult to police over the college football season. And then later in the second hour, myself and Caleb will make our college football playoff 12-team prediction. We'll predict the 4 auto conference bids from the power conferences. We'll pick our auto bid from the group of 5, and then we'll pick all of our at-large picks as well to round out the field of the 12 teams. And then we'll get to some final thoughts as we wrap up the show. But before we do the rest of that, let's welcome in Caleb, who's joining us again today. Caleb, how you doing today?
Feeling good. A lot of stuff to get to today. Pretty heavy practice. A lot of stuff we got from there. But it's a sad day for kids of our generation, Garrett.
What is that?
Russell Westbrook.
Oh yeah, today. Russell Westbrook did retire today. A couple NBA things happened today. That and the Lakers were bought. I guess technically last night, but the news for that broke this morning too.
Somber day for us.
Russell Westbrook was kind of the first guy. Obviously, he had a motor that almost nobody else had, and I don't really understand why there was a generation of people that didn't really like him. He went out there and competed every single night. Obviously, was the triple-double king, and kind of allowed players of this generation to try and do that, not just score points, but assist, rebounds, all facets of the game. So Russell Westbrook definitely was one of my favorite players growing up. 18-year career. Obviously, over the past couple seasons, he's been in some tough spots, but just, I'll never forget when he played for the Thunder. Night in and night out, those teams were electric to watch.
Absolutely. He's my favorite NBA player of all time. So.
Is he really?
Yeah.
I don't know if I can go as far as to saying that, but he was a player that I enjoyed watching, but I don't know that I would go as far as to saying. But I feel like our generation, people that are in like their early 20s, I know every generation has lots of good players, and you can make the argument, obviously, that in the 80s and 90s and even back into the 70s, the best basketball was played. But I still think of this generation getting Steph, LeBron, Kevin Durant, James Harden, Giannis, Luka, Victor Wembanyama. There's going to be so many Hall of Famers. There's Hall of Famers, obviously, from every generation, but it just seems like in this generation, distinctly, there's almost more than you're going to see from others. It just seems like every team has a player that could go down as a top 100, 150 player of all time.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll jump into the Tennessee sports, but before we do so, as a reminder, however you're listening to us, make sure to subscribe, like, comment, however you want to do so. And then on Twitter and YouTube, make sure to comment in the chat box, and we'll try and get to all of your questions and comments throughout the day as we break down another day of Tennessee fall practice, fall camp, whatever you want to call it. But we're inching closer and closer to the season. And like I said in the intro, Glenn Ellerbe spoke with the Tennessee media yesterday about the offensive line, an offensive line unit that we're all pretty high on. And we feel like the offensive line is going to be something that really helps the offense. A young quarterback's going to go out there, but they're going to have time in the pocket. You're going to be able to establish the run game and be able to get the ball to the wide receivers that you have in the skill position groups. Now we're going to talk about the defensive side of the ball because Rodney Garner met with the media today, and he had some quotes where I think there were some people that were a little bit worried about some of the quotes that he had because Rodney Garner's kind of a no BS guy. He doesn't deal, he's been in coaching for so long, and a lot of this is going to be coach speak. He wants to get the most out of his players. And he said when they asked him today how he would assess his group's sense of urgency so far, through the 6 practices, he said, just coming out of yesterday, just been very inconsistent. You have a good day, you have a bad day. Obviously, you're not moving the needle when you're going up and down. Can't have those roller coaster moments. And like I told them this morning in the meeting, we got to be climbing that mountain every day. We can't take steps backwards. Nobody's got time to hear. Nobody wants to hear it about being young, who all we lost. That's irrelevant. We got to be moving the needle every single day that we get out here and on the field. And so, I think a lot of people on social media, Tennessee fans, are going to react to this of the defensive line unit, maybe hasn't had very good practices going into him saying it's been inconsistent. I think that's just what happens when you have a more younger group and when you have a group that doesn't have as many snaps, potentially over some of the previous defensive line groups that you've had in Rodney Garner's time here at Tennessee. But I think this is still a unit that's going to be good. I still have my questions a little bit, about the pass rush, and we'll talk about that later when we talk about the Leos group, because Josh Norman was someone that Jordan Norman, has been someone that's been praised so far during camp, and that's something that we'll talk about later. But I think the defensive line as a whole, I don't think it's its core maybe as good on the offense or as good as the offensive line, winning at the line of scrimmage. I don't think it's going to be an Oklahoma defensive line last season where you can win games defensively just in your front seven. But I do think that this defensive line is still going to be a good group. I think as we talk about, obviously, having a good linebacker core, that helps the entire defense. You have a good secondary. It's all going to come down to, can you create pass rush? Because that was something that even last season you struggled with a little bit. I go back to the Arkansas game, a game where you had a pretty big lead going into the fourth quarter, and Arkansas kind of just climbed their way back. Taylor Green was kind of running all over you, and you gave up, obviously, way too many third downs. And part of that obviously goes down to your secondary. We talk about how poor the tackling was last season and the bad angles that were taken, but part of that also goes to the defensive line, not creating pressure on the quarterback, not making the quarterback have to get the ball out of his hands. And so I think the defensive line and QB pressures are going to have to be better. I think more tackle for losses, things like that, and to get off the field on third down. But Caleb, what do you make of these quotes today that you hear coming from Rodney Garner? Obviously a guy, like I said, I think, Rodney Garner's not going to be the guy that goes out there and tells you, it's rainbows and sunshine. He's going to get real with you. He's going to tell you how he genuinely thinks. And you want that in a coach. That's why Rodney Garner is one of the most, highly looked upon coaches, not just at Tennessee, but really in the entire SEC. Been a coach for decades, and the players obviously trust him. And obviously a coach that he's seen a thing or two, so he knows what to talk about.
Yeah, he's one of those coaches where it's day to day. If they had a good practice, he would have came out and probably made it sound like we were going to have the best defensive line in the country. But I don't know. If you've been around sports, you've probably played under a coach that's kind of similar to Rodney Garner. He's kind of the polar opposite as far as it goes with Heupel, with talking to the media. He kind of just speaks his mind and leaves nothing to the imagination. Just doesn't really use any kind of filters or anything. But we all kind of knew that this defensive line was going to be a little bit of a weak spot in terms of the defense for Tennessee going into this season. But obviously this isn't something that you want to hear. But, we got a lot of fall camp left, so we got a lot of time to get better.
Well, when he was asked who had impressed him most in the group, he said, I answered that question earlier. This is just the beginning of the quote, but in regards to another question that I didn't include here. But the rest of it was, he said, I told you it was Xavier Gilliam, and Jordan Norman probably have been the most productive guys. That hasn't changed. Weathersby has been pretty consistent camp. There's guys that flash, just guys who have good days and just guys that have had bad days. And we just got to continue to stack good on good and continue to grow. We can't take 2 steps forward and then take a step back. We're not really going anywhere. We're just running in place, so that's the challenge. And so I think that kind of goes back to, what you're talking about when he says, maybe you're taking 2 steps forward, you have a good practice, you take a step backwards. But at the end of the day, I think stacking days, even if you do have some bad days, those grow you together and your unit together for when you get to the season. And I think that's kind of what he's saying with 2 steps forward and 1 step back. I don't think it's necessarily ever 2 steps forward and 2 steps back, but you're still gaining progress every camp day, even if it's not maybe the best day that you would have wanted within your unit. I think you can still grow and you can still learn things from that. And he continued on for saying, for us, I like my group, so I don't want to come across like that. I think they're a very talented group, but we don't have time for them to grow. The time is now. It is now. It is now. September 5th will be here before they know it. They don't even look at it like that. They'll be here before they know it. And I can't find out on September the 5th. That stage is too big, right? We've got to find that out every day. So if I'm intimidating to them, what do you think is 102,000 going to be? So you just got to put them in the understanding, the pressure, and that's what's expected. This is what we all signed up for, me as a coach too. We all signed up for this. So we need to understand the expectations and what's required and how to get it done. End quote. So again, I think part of it too, I mean, what I said about Rodney Garter, he's not going to be the coach that goes out there and holds your hand. He's going to be the coach that goes out there and he's going to tell you how he feels. He's going to tell the media how he feels. He's going to tell players how they feel. But I think that is good that you hear, good things coming out of Xavier Gilliam and Jordan Norman. Jordan Norman, obviously, coming over from Tulane last season, 6 sacks last year, a very good player. Tulane makes the American Conference Championship, wins the American Conference Championship, makes the college football playoff, plays Ole Miss and Oxford. Obviously, they end up losing that game, but the Tulane team that he was on last season, very talented group. Played at South Alabama 2 seasons before that, stacked 2 good years. Xavier Gilliam, obviously, a guy that's been in the Jim Knowles system before at Penn State, but I think it is important that you have 2 guys, I guess, that are kind of being the most productive guys in the group, potentially leadership roles in the defensive line, and they're both guys that are coming in out of the portal. They're guys that you got. A Gilliam kind of was more of a Knowles guy that comes in, but a Norman guy was someone that you had to really find in the portal, someone that you had to go out there and figure out, what edge rusher do I want? Why do I want this guy? There was obviously a reason why you went out and got Norman. And again, we'll talk about more him within the Leos group, but when you hear quotes like this, I mean, how important is it to be able to hear that Xavier Gilliam is off to a good start? Because again, you've heard that from a good amount of these guys that are coming over in the Jim Knowles system, and we've talked about it numerous times on this show and other shows here, but people have said, well, the Jim Knowles system sometimes takes 2 years to get, fully into check. And I'm not saying that the defense is going to be perfect this season. There's obviously going to be growing pains, and I hope the defense in 2027 and the second season of Jim Knowles is improved from this season. But I think the fact that you're bringing over players from that defense, not just, at one position, but you're bringing over Penn State players. You have Amari Campbell in the linebacker room. You have DeJuan Lane in the secondary. You have Xavier Gilliam up front. So you have them on all facets of the units. It's not just 1 or 2 players that you brought over. You brought over a handful. And so I do think that is going to help with the defense, and I think that that's going to help you ease into this new system a little bit easier.
Yeah, I think it's something that you like to see when you see that these guys are taking and these guys are kind of performing up to par, because that's kind of what you needed. Whenever we hired Jim Knowles, that's kind of the only thing that you heard anybody say was how long it takes the system to implement. And then, like you said, we have at least one former Jim Knowles player at every level of this defense, so that's going to help us tremendously. I think that's going to help us more than a lot of Tennessee fans understand, especially when you have a guy like Amari Campbell who's going to be wearing that green dot for us, being able to get everybody set up in the right positions. I think that's invaluable, being able to have guys like that. And I think it's great to hear guys outside of Jordan Norman on the defensive line being able to show out and get the coach's attention and be able to perform and produce and practice, because that was an issue for you. The only name that we really knew on the defensive line was like a Jordan Norman. It's probably the only name average Tennessee fans who don't really follow it a lot knew, because we did have so much churn on that defensive line. And then we did have the Chaz Coleman situation, an unfortunate situation nonetheless, but we're still going to be sitting here with a little bit of a thinner room when it comes to that defensive line. But it's gives you a little hope when you hear names like Xavier Gilliam.
And I think that's interesting, that we bring up. You have someone on the defensive side of the ball coming over from Penn State at each one of those positions in the defense. You can kind of break it down. On the front line, you have the Xavier Gilliam. Kind of in the middle, obviously, in the linebacker room, you have an Amari Campbell. And Amari Campbell that played a ton at Penn State last season. And then you have a DeJuan Lane in the secondary. So I think, to me, that is important that you have it in all facets of the defense, because it's one thing if Jim Knowles comes over and, you have one player that played for him last season. That doesn't really help that much. But you have a linebacker that's going to be your green dot guy, that's going to have helmet-to-helmet communication within the sideline and coaching staff to your defense. Obviously, you would have liked to have had Xavier Gilliam and Chaz Coleman on the defense up front, but, obviously with everything that's happened, it's just going to be Xavier Gilliam. And then on the back end in the secondary, you're going to have DeJuan Lane. So I think that everything that you're seeing from those guys so far has been good, and I think that it is good to see that the Penn State guys that have come over here with Knowles are starting good in practice, because I think it's as important for any of them to have leadership roles and to be able to understand what this defense is, because it's not that the Jim Knowles defense is necessarily like completely different than other. I mean, it is different, but it's just harder to understand for players. So how much, of an impact do you think those players are able to have on some of these other defensive players? And obviously, you do have some young players on the defense in the linebacker room, a Perlotti. Obviously, you're going to have Ty Redmond, who's going to be a sophomore this season, but you also have plenty of guys that have played college football for a long time, whether that's, a Metcalf, whether that's an Arion Carter. I mean, you have plenty of guys that have played plenty of collegiate snaps that can talk to these Penn State guys. Okay, this is how it went there. This is how it's going to go here. I think just from the vocabulary and the way that you're able to speak to those guys, that helps the defense too. Because like I said, I think from what you've heard from Jim Knowles' defenses in the past, whether it was Oklahoma State, Ohio State, Penn State, the system's just a little bit different. And I think the vocabulary is almost the hardest thing for the players to learn the ins and outs of.
Yeah, it definitely helps not only in the fact of having guys from Penn State, but having transfers that are veterans that have played a lot of football in their career. I think it's a very different situation than we have from our offense, because on the offensive side of the ball, we got a lot of really good pieces. We got a lot of really talented pieces that maybe don't have as much football experience. But then on the defensive side of the ball, we have guys that maybe don't carry that 5-star pedigree, but they have that experience and that knowledge of the game under their belt. And that when you're learning a new system that's notorious for being maybe a little bit more difficult than other systems, I feel like having that experience and just that knowledge of what you're doing and where you're supposed to be is a lot more important than having like a star next to your name, maybe in that aspect of it.
Well, also on the podium today was Tennessee's Leo coach, Andrew Jackson. Obviously, another newer coach with this Jim Knowles staff. And he was asked some questions too. Obviously, the Leo group is going to be an important, factor for this defense. He kind of echoed similar things to Rodney Garner. He did say him and Garner have a little bit of a different personality. He's more of the, obviously Garner, like we said, is going to be kind of the more no BS, fully going to get the most out of your players every single day and tell them exactly how you feel. Whereas Jackson's going to be more of the guy that's going to kind of lead encouragement and be more of the, I guess, easier coach to talk to, maybe not as loud and aggressive during practice. So he kind of spoke on the fact that the way that those two, coaches mix together, it kind of meshes for the defense. And when he was asked on how Tennessee's pass rush has responded during this preseason and into fall camp, he said, man, just like G said, the inconsistency. So it's a great rep. We're trying to replicate that more often than not. And age is not an excuse. Experience is not an excuse. You've got to be the same guy. You've got to raise the bar every day. You've got to move that needle, not like one step back and one step forward. So every rep that we're getting out there is Leo's has been gold for Kedrick Golston, Christian Gass, and Hezekiah Harris. And when you hear, some of those names, especially young names, and Christian Gass, obviously, is a guy that will probably most definitely be a factor in this edge rushing room. Hezekiah Harris, a guy that was highly rated out of high school. Kedrick Golston, another high school, highly rated guy. Obviously, younger guys in the room, but just how impactful do you think those players are going to be, in a Leo room and in an edge room that is going to be a little bit weaker with the fact that, as we've said, all offseason, you let Ross go, the stuff that happened with Chaz Coleman. Some of these younger guys are going to have to step up, and it's happened before. You saw James Pierce when he was at Tennessee. He made a jump, and so you can make a jump from freshman to sophomore to junior season. It can happen, and there's no reason really why it can't happen when you're going to have opportunities in the edge position, and some of these guys are going to get a lot of snaps as young players.
Yeah, I think this is one of the position groups that we've kind of had our eyes on that we're going to probably have to get a lot more production than you usually would. We're going to have some more traditional linebackers kind of play into that more hybrid role of the edge rusher. But yeah, it's very promising when you hear names being called that are being productive in camp that are able to get that kind of performance out of that position group, because that's going to be one of if not the most important position groups on defense, let alone the entire team for this upcoming season. So yeah, it's promising for sure.
Well, and obviously Kedrick Golston, too, comes from a pedigree of a family. Obviously, his dad played, football at a very high level, and that was another question that was asked on how he'd seen Golston grow and if he could help Tennessee this season. He said, he's the son of a pro. He's known since he was a little kid with his father-son relationship with his dad. He knows the game. Now he's just getting stronger in the weight room, things like that, applying things on the field at full speed. He's got a tremendous skill set, but now it's just growing up every single day. And again, I look at some of these guys that are going to be able to help the pass rush. They're going to be younger guys, but that just helps you grow too for the 2027 season. We talk about obviously 2026 is a vastly important season, but 2027 is going to be almost even more important, I think. I think your schedule in 2027 is going to be a little bit easier. You're going to have a quarterback that's going to be going into their second year starting. So you obviously want to win as many games as you can this season. And I've said I think this is probably an 8-9 win team opposed to a 10-win team that makes the playoff. But, I think going into next season, you are a 10-win team because you bring so much of this blue chip talent back. And I think your pass rush next season is going to be really good. So I think obviously growing this season is important. Obviously, you want to be able to go out there and execute high leverage situations on the defense, create pass rush on the defensive ends, and be able to put pressure on the quarterback. But I think that the inconsistencies that you're having and things of that nature, you could sort those things out as you go through the season, so that when you're going into 2027, you feel more comfortable with that group as well. Again, not to say that they can't be impactful in 2026. But as much as you want them to be impactful in 2026, I think it's almost just as important that they get the reps to be really good in 2027, when I think you genuinely do have a college football playoff team that has a quarterback going into his second full year of starting.
Yeah, I think that's kind of something that we've talked about a lot, is kind of using this year as more of like a bridge year, maybe like just a year to kind of get the young guys set in to kind of set us up for that 27 season. And I don't think that's something that Tennessee fans should shy away from. I think there's a lot to be said about that, especially when we've dealt with the situations we've dealt with in the last couple of years with the Nico stuff, with him walking away and deciding to go to UCLA. That's something that affects your program for a lot longer than just a year. I mean, if everything played out, Nico would have been the starting quarterback here this year, and he would have been entering his third season. And who knows? You can say what you want about Nico and what kind of his expectations were and what his performance was at Tennessee, but regardless, he would have been the guy at the quarterback spot. And that kind of, when he walked away, that kind of throws your entire season for the next couple of years up into the air. I mean, this was supposed to be Faison comes in, sits behind Nico his freshman year, kind of learns the ropes, and then steps into that starter role next year. But that kind of all got jumbled up when Nico decided to walk. But you just kind of got to cut Heupel some slack. I know a lot of Tennessee fans don't want to. They say this is year 6. We shouldn't be staring down an 8-9 win season. We should be competing for championships. But that's just kind of the way it is right now with how everything unfolded.
Well, going back to that pass rush, and we talk about some of the younger names, but I think another name that you really need to know for this season too, Tyree Weathersby. Obviously a guy, this is going into his 4th year, had an impact last season, made 24 tackles, 10 solo tackles, had a sack. Last season was really the first year that he had like a real impact on the field. He played, sparingly in 2024, but 2025, his impact was felt more than it had been felt at any time he's been in the program. This season, obviously, he's going to have to be even more impactful. When I talk about some of the jumps that you've seen, there's plenty of defensive players on the defensive line that you've seen in the country that, freshman year didn't play much, maybe redshirted, sophomore year, were an impactful player, and then they get to that junior, senior year, and they end up turning into a guy that has 4, 5, 6 sacks, is kind of there, a lot of TFLs, a lot of QB pressure, stuff like that. Is that something that you could think Weathersby could be this season? A guy that's been in the system for a while, been at Tennessee his whole career, and a guy that I think can make a jump this season as well.
Yeah, I think anybody with 4 seasons of getting coached by Rodney Garner could be a pretty good football player. I think Rodney Garner is one of, if not the best defensive line coaches in the SEC, maybe even the country. I really trust Gardner. He's done a lot. He's produced a lot of really good players, really good draft picks. And yeah, I don't see any reason why he can't have an impact. I mean, if you got the body size and you've been here that long, I think you should be able to step in and maybe cause some damage.
I mean, that's something that you see sometimes. I preview a lot of college football teams for some stuff that I do on the side, and I see that a lot. I'll be previewing a team, and I'll see a kid that has stats that are pretty pedestrian, maybe 10 solo tackles, a sack or 2, and then they're put into a role the next season where they're able to kind of accelerate, put their foot on the gas, and play way more snaps than they have previous seasons. And then boom, next season they have 30 solo tackles and 7 or 8 sacks. And I'm not saying that Weathersby is definitely going to do that, but I think he's going to have to be an impactful piece on this defense, on the defensive line. There's going to have to be a lot of guys that do that. And I'm still really high on Jordan Norman. I think ever since we got him from Tulane, he was someone that I've been really high on. because Tulane had a lot of really good pieces last season. I mean, they made the college football playoff. You don't make the college football playoff for no reason. And he came from a good coaching staff at Tulane. I think playing under John Summerall for a season there, obviously comes over from South Alabama, started in the Sun Belt, but I think a year of championship pedigree at Tulane. This isn't going to be a guy that's going to be afraid to come in and make an impact in the SEC. He's already played in a college football playoff. He's already played in a conference championship game. He's played under John Summerall, who I expect to be a good coach in the SEC in the future. So I think Jordan Norman can step in and be impactful day one. Obviously, the entire fan base expects that. You don't go out and get a guy that has 6 sacks for nothing. But I think Norman could have a really impactful season this year and could be one of the best edge rushers that you've seen at Tennessee over the last handful of seasons. I'm not saying that he's going to be prime James Pierce when he was here, but I think he could be very impactful. I mean, Pierce, he was really good, and then his last season here before he went to the NFL, he kind of took a little bit of a drop off. And so I think Norman has the opportunity to come in and be a really impactful piece at that edge position in a group that obviously is maybe a little bit weaker than you would have expected at the beginning of summer, obviously with the Chaz Coleman stuff that went on. But on the other side, we're going to move back into the secondary. Quay Moss, he was mic'd up at practice today, and we'll talk about some of the stuff that he's dealt with in his career. He didn't just get to Tennessee as a 5-star product. This is a kid that started playing and started playing football at community college. He went to Dodge City Community College and played football there before he even got an opportunity at Kansas State, and now he's at Tennessee. I think this is going to be a guy that's going to have a leadership role with Tennessee as well this season. We'll talk some Quay Moss in the secondary on the other side. Stick with us. It's overtime.
For the fans, by the fans, this is Fan Run Radio, Knoxville.
Blackford Veterinary Surgery Referral specializes in surgeries not regularly performed by your pet's general veterinarian. They're currently accepting referrals from vets all across the country. With their newly renovated state-of-the-art surgery center and highly trained staff, clients can rely on professional and thorough care. If your vet says that your pet needs surgery or rehab, ask for a referral to Blackford Vet and let them get your best friend back on its feet. Located conveniently in West Knoxville. For more information, visit blackfordvetsurgery.com.
For over 3 years, Crumble Cookies has served the Knoxville area. From Clinton Highway to Parkside Drive, even our friends out in Maryville have reached you, our fans, with the best cookies in the game. This fall, Crumble is gearing up for yet another fantastic season. Whether you're tailgating or looking for a pick-me-up after getting the kids from school, Crumble has you covered. Download the Crumble app to check out this week's rewards and features. And stop on by. Tell them Fan Run sent you, but don't miss the cookies.
Is your crawl space damp, musty, or showing signs of mold? Call S&D Crawl Space and Insulation. From crawl space encapsulation and mold remediation to waterproofing, insulation, and dehumidifiers, S&D helps protect your home from moisture and poor air quality. Serving Knoxville and surrounding areas, call 865-602-0590. That's 865-602-0590. S&D Crawl Space and Insulation, protecting your home from the ground up.
Golf Envy Farragut is the premier indoor golf experience you've been looking for. And right now they are offering a limited number of founding memberships. Golfers can reserve their spot for just $150 before their September grand opening. Founding members receive 90 days of unlimited guest passes as well as an exclusive risk-free first month. That's right, try out Golf Envy with no obligation. Give it 30 days, and if it's not the right fit for what you're looking for, your first month's dues will be refunded. Members will get access to their Golf Zone 2 Vision NX simulator technology, the most realistic simulator on the market, where they can play more than 300 courses and compete in leagues and tournaments with players all across the country. Golf, rain or shine, 24/7, 365. To learn more and become a founding member, visit their website at farragut.golfenvy.com/presale.
All right, back here on Overtime here on Fan Run Radio. We appreciate you hanging out with us here on this Wednesday evening, continuing to talk Tennessee Fall Camp. Good conversation there on the defensive line. Some of the stuff that was said by Rodney Garner and Leo's coach Andrew Jackson today during media availability. Now we're going to move back to the secondary. We're going to talk some Quay Moss. Quay Moss is a guy that I'm pretty high on this season. He comes in, he's going to be playing that nickel position, a position that obviously Jalen McMurray played last season. And I look at the nickel position as one of the more impactful positions in the secondary because you have to have the ability of, you can kind of play a mix of safety, corner. You have to be able to kind of play everything to play the nickel. You kind of just have to be a guy that is kind of always where the ball is. And Quay Moss, obviously a guy that, he's from West Point, Georgia. I actually went to school for a year at a college that was really close to there. And it's kind of in the middle of nowhere. It's in middle Georgia, about an hour and a half south of the airport. Not a whole lot going on down there. I would imagine when he was a kid, football was the main thing that he probably did because there's not a whole lot else going on there. And grinded his way to Dodge City Community College, where he played there for a year, and then transferred to West Georgia, where he played FCS football. And West Georgia, he played there in 2024, but in 2023 and 2022 and beyond, they were Division II. So he went from JUCO to essentially a D2 school that was barely turning FCS to then he balled out there. Then he goes to Kansas State in the Big 12 up at the FBS level. Has another good season there, and now he's headed to Tennessee, and now he gets to play in the SEC. He's from the South. He gets to play in, the premier conference in the country, the SEC and the Big Ten, and now he gets to showcase his talents at the highest level. Whenever I hear stories like this, I think these are really cool stories in college football. Obviously, I don't like guys that transfer 4 or 5 times to get the biggest payday, and, it didn't work at Miami. Let's go to, Florida State now. Oh, it didn't work at Florida State. Let's go to Texas. Oh, it didn't work at Texas. Let's go to Georgia. Like, I don't like guys like that transfer 4 different times to 4 different Power 4 institutions. But someone like this that's making, incremental movements throughout their career, I have no problem with that. Obviously played JUCO ball. Everyone wants to get out of junior college and go play at a higher level. Gets to the FCS, okay? Let's go play FBS ball. Go play his FBS balls out in the Big 12. Let's go play in the SEC. So he's made, adjustments to his game, obviously, throughout his career. He's obviously gotten better every single season. And that tells me that this isn't a guy that's hit his ceiling yet. Because if he's improved immensely that much over the past 3-4 years, I think he even has another gear that he can put in place this year. And the Tennessee social media team, they put out a piece where he had a mic at practice. I don't know if it was today or yesterday. It was posted today, but had him on the mic and basically talking to his teammates and stuff. Seems like a very vocal leader. And again, we talk about having vocal leaders. Obviously, the secondary is going to have plenty of guys that have played plenty of collegiate snaps, whether that's a Kyan Lee, whether that's a DeJuan Lane, whether that is a Quay Moss. You have a Ty Redmond that's still kind of developing those vocal leadership roles because he's going to be going into his true sophomore year, but an extremely highly talented corner. But when you look at Quay Moss, I mean, how cool is it to see a guy that starts at junior college and makes his way up all the way to the SEC, has a couple stops in between, but again, just kind of makes incremental movements every season to get better and better.
Yeah, the Quay Moss is a guy that I've talked on here about a lot, and I've been very vocal about how much I like this kid. He's just climbing the ladder. I mean, that's kind of you got to respect the kid for it. He's won at every level, and he's been successful at every level, and now he's gonna try his hand at the best conference in college football and play against some of the best competition and see how he does. Watching the mic'd up video, one thing I noticed is his legs are absolutely massive. I mean, he looks really explosive. In part of it, he was fielding some punts, so maybe we might see him back there returning some punts on some special teams plays. So, yeah, this is a kid I'm really excited about. He's not the first you talk about when you talk about the defense. A lot of people will talk about Mark Campbell or Arian Carter first, but I think this is going to be a kid that's going to be one of our best defensive players going into this next season.
You look back at his stats from last season, 31 solo tackles, a forced fumble, 2 interceptions, and a pass breakup. Pretty good numbers, obviously. The one thing that, people, I guess, from kind of a more national media circle have said is he's kind of on the smaller side. He's only 5'10". He's not 6 foot. Now, it's not as much of an issue at safety as it is at corner. But even, height, I think, in the secondary can be proven wrong. I mean, you saw D'Angelo Pons last season. He was one of the highest rated corners off the board this season and was one of the best players in the Indiana National Championship last season. And he was also kind of in that 5'10", 5'11" height. And he was, you could make the argument he was the best corner in the country last season. And he was the guy that came over with Signetti from James Madison. So I think, you see this a lot. I mean, you've seen it in college football over the past couple of seasons. A lot of these guys that started I guess a lower level. I don't want to diminish, the school that they're at before and say lower level, but playing, lower competition at whether it's the FCS level. I mean, you saw last season, Trinidad Chambliss comes up. I mean, he was obviously a D2 national champion at Ferris State, but most people that follow college football probably don't even know where Ferris State is unless you're really into, knowing where schools are around the country and stuff. But I mean, he played Division II football, comes to Ole Miss, and he knew that he wasn't going to be the guy. He knew he was going to be QB2 to start last season to Austin Simmons. Austin Simmons goes down, bam, Trinidad's in there, and Trinidad goes out there and throws for 3,500 passing yards last year and leads his team almost to the national championship and goes nuclear in the college football playoff. So I think it shows you that there's talent at every level. There's talent at Division III. There's talent at Division II. There's talent. There's plenty of talented guys at the FCS. There's talented guys that are on bad teams in the FBS. There's talent everywhere. So I think that speaks to, again, this kind of goes back, I think, to Tennessee finding guys in the transfer portal that fit their build and fit what they want. Obviously, they see something on Quay Moss's tape that they like, got him on the visit, get him to commit. Obviously, Kansas State saw something from him when he was at the FCS level. So these schools are really good at figuring out who they want and what kids they're going to go attack in the transfer portal. Obviously, some schools are better at it than others, and you've seen sometimes in the transfer portal it blow up in people's faces. I mean, you saw a Penn State team last year that had a pretty good amount of transfer portal talent that you thought was going to be really good, and they were horrible. But I think Tennessee's done pretty good, especially in the secondary with guys that they've got out of the transfer portal. You look at the last couple seasons, Colton Hood at Colorado, I mean, he was kind of Travis Hunter's backup to an extent during the 2023 season. And in 2024, got the opportunity to play and, got starting reps. But I think people still, when he came to Tennessee, obviously he wouldn't have been a starting corner had you have had Ricky Gibson and Jermod McCoy be healthy. And he comes out there and is extremely talented, extremely good, and goes highly in the NFL draft and was arguably, I mean, you could make the argument he was one of the best players on your team last season, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Jermod McCoy comes over from Oregon State. I mean, when he was at Oregon State, that was kind of when the Pac-12 was blowing up. Oregon State didn't necessarily have a place to play, kind of going into the end of the Pac-12 season. And he balls out at Oregon State. Tennessee says, come here, and he ends up being really good at Tennessee. So Tennessee's hit on this before. I think you're going to see Tennessee hit on it again with Kyan Lee coming over from Auburn this season, because I've talked extensively about him, how good he was at Auburn last season. Auburn had a top 3 scoring defense most of the time last season throughout the country in the FBS level. They just couldn't score, and so that was why Auburn was a 5-7 team opposed to an 8-4 and 9-3 team. He was a really good corner last season. If you look at his stats, played very lockdown coverage. And now this season out of the transfer portal, you obviously go get a Metcalf from Michigan, another guy that I'm pretty high on. DeJuan Lane comes over with Jim Knowles. And then you go find this Quay Moss kid that's coming over from the Big 12. Caleb, when you hear about stuff like this, how impressive is it that Tennessee is able to kind of hit on these guys in the transfer portal, especially in the secondary over the past couple of seasons? You've had a very high hit rate of guys that have made an impact immediately.
Yeah, I mean, it started back with Jermon McCoy from Oregon State. I'll say it again, like I said yesterday. If he doesn't tear his ACL and he plays and he plays all last season, then I think he is probably one of the best, if not the best, NFL prospect in the draft going into that selection. But yeah, then you do it again the very next year with Colton Hood. Again, I don't know what kind of reps he would have gotten with Jermod if Jermod and Ricky were both healthy, but still, I mean, Jermod kind of saved our season last year in a sense from the secondary perspective, even though that secondary still wasn't very good. Colton Hood was kind of the one bright spot on that secondary from last year's defense. We kind of saw in the bowl game how bad the defense would have been without Colton Hood the entire season. So yeah, I think when you hit on guys in the transfer portal like this, it's almost like you're playing with house money. If we have the same rate that we have had the last couple of years with this upcoming year, we're going to have a lot of really good defensive backs. So it's exciting because we got a lot of talent coming in for that group and just the entire, especially the safety room. But yeah, it'll be exciting.
Obviously, the nickel position and the safety position. I mean, McMurray, he had really good moments last season. Obviously, was an easy guy to root for. after the Music City Bowl, I remember he had that press conference moment basically talking about how much it meant to him playing at Tennessee and stuff. Obviously, a guy you want to root for. Had his moments throughout the season, though, where tackling was tough, and tackling was tough for everybody in the secondary. But, I mean, the safety position, I think, is probably going to be the position that you're going to see the most improvement in, because if Farouk really is as good as Jim Knowles has said he is, if he's really made that much of, Farouk, to me, he has a high ceiling. He created a lot of turnovers last season, but he also had some low IQ moments where, he took bad angles on a wide receiver to try and tackle. He had some bad tackling moments, and I think part of that does go back to technique. And I think with Jim Knowles and Derek Owens kind of working together from a physical standpoint with Derek Owens, and then from a technique standpoint from, a Jim Knowles, I think the tackling is something that we talk about almost every day on the show is going to get better. But I just think that the safety room is going to be significantly better, because the safety, we've talked about it extensively, but safety play has probably been the worst position on your team over the past handful of seasons. You just haven't had good safety play. For as good as your corners have been, your safety play has almost been just as pathetic. And so you don't just have, one safety that you feel confident in or one nickel that you feel confident in this season. You have multiple, and you have a multitude of guys that can kind of sub in and sub out on that secondary if needed. If a guy needs to come out for a play or two for a breather, you have someone that you feel like can go in there and be a plug and play guy. Forbid if someone gets injured, hopefully that doesn't happen. But if someone gets injured in the secondary, you feel like you have options. Over the past couple of years, as we've said, someone gets injured, if Colton Hood gets injured last season, you might have been a 6-6 team, because I think you saw how bad your secondary was at points in the season last year. The Kentucky game, your secondary was not good. Part of that, I think, was because your defense was on the field so much because your offense was scoring on every possession. The Illinois game, your secondary was questionable. So I think it just shows the depth is going to be something that's going to be bigger during this season as well. Would you agree, though, that the safety play, I really do think that the safety position could be the biggest position that you see the biggest growth in and the biggest impact from Jim Knowles and from Derek Owens? I just think that that's going to be the position that you see the biggest jump on from 2025 to 2026.
Yeah, I think safety has easily been the worst position group on the team, probably since Heupel has gotten hired, and I think Jim Knowles is going to remedy that. I think there's not really a game last year that you can point to and say that the defense wasn't absolutely abysmal. I think the defense last year was it was, especially the safety play, it was very, very hard to watch sometimes. I think outside of maybe 22 or 23, last year was probably the worst defensive and safety performance that we've had all season. It was really, really rough, and I don't think it's going to take much to be drastically improved at that position this upcoming season, but I think we got the guys to do it. I think we're probably the most talented we've been in the Heupel era in the safety room, maybe not in the corner room, but definitely in the safety room. And then that having that assist at corner and that extra support at safety rather, is going to allow those corners to just play that much better.
I'm interested to see what Quay Moss brings through if he does return punts this season. That's another thing that we've talked about this offseason.
He's really fast.
Yeah, he is fast. And that's something that we've talked about over this offseason was Boo Carter was supposed to be your guy last season that was going to be your electric punt returner. And Boo Carter refused to return punts. He would just sit back there and fair catch it. He would have moments where there's plenty of green space in front of him and fair catches it. And you can't have moments like that happen. I think DeJuan Morris is going to be a guy that's going to be, used in the special teams. He was used a little bit last season. Maybe you see Braylon Staley out there, but I think a Quay Moss, a guy that can cut up field and make explosive plays is something that you need from the punt returning unit, because it was something that I said too the other day. Over the past couple of years, you haven't really had someone that could make that explosive play since D. Williams. Obviously, D. Williams in 2023, I think he basically won you the Texas A&M game on the punt return that he had. The momentum completely flipped. There were not many points scored in that game, and that was kind of the defining moment in that game. When you think back to the 2023 Texas A&M against Tennessee game, you think about the D. Williams punt return that he had. And obviously, there were moments throughout, the past couple of seasons where Boo Carter's had, explosive plays. But I think Special teams is also going to be something that is going to improve this season. I think you're going to have better kicking. You're going to have a better kicker. And I just think that hopefully punt and kick returns are something that you can use to your advantage this season.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see who they decide to put back there at the punt returner spot. There's a lot of different avenues you can go down. Quay Moss to me would probably be who I would want to see back there returning punts, and obviously there's a lot of guys that take those reps in practice, but the only things that I've seen so far is Quay Moss taking those reps. So I don't know if he's taking the ones or how that works, or if they just go out and catch balls from the jugs machine. But it'll be fun. Punt returns are always electric. Special teams is a lot of the times in close games towards the end of the season, or at any point in the season really is where games are won and lost. A big punt return for a touchdown in a game can win it for you and seal it for you, especially just the way it affects the crowd and the atmosphere. There's nothing like a punt return. There's very few things that rival a punt return for a touchdown. Maybe a Kamal Hadden pick six on Spencer Rattler. Maybe that's the only thing that I can think of that would be a little bit better than that. But yeah, punt returns and kickoff returns are the two things that I feel like just really just turn the tide of a game more than anything.
Last thing that I want to speak on about the depth of the secondary too is you have a guy, and I mean, you're probably familiar with DJ Burks. He's from Maryville. You're a Knoxville guy as well, kind of similar age, obviously, to him. This is a guy that played at App State last season. Again, he's not going to be a starter, but he had 34 tackles, 2 forced fumbles, 2 interceptions, and 5 pass breakups, playing Division I FBS football last season. Again, he's probably going to be a depth piece that's going to only come in, once the game gets a little bit more out of hand, can be a plug-and-play guy, something like that, or comes in if someone's injured. But I think another guy like him, that just speaks to how good the depth is. You haven't had a guy in your secondary over the past couple seasons that had those type of stats at the FBS level. And even saying it's not really a guy that's probably even going to play that much. Usually in the past couple seasons, a guy that's had stats like that is out there immediately. So I think that also speaks to how good the secondary could be this season.
Yeah, absolutely. The secondary to me is the single position that I think is going to take the biggest jump.
I agree. I think the linebacker room is like probably a better unit than the secondary, but I think the linebacker room obviously can improve their tackling, but I just think you're going to see so many improvements in the nickel and the safety position. And again, nothing against Jalen McMurray. He was a good player. I just think Quay Moss can almost elevate the ceiling a little bit more. And then, from everything you're hearing, it sounds like Farouk, it sounds like he's going to be a better safety than he was last season. And then, obviously, your 2 corners that you're going to have with Lee and Redmond. I think Redmond makes a really big jump this season. I think he could be, honestly, one of the better corners in the entire conference this year as a true sophomore. So I'm excited to see those guys. On the other side, though, we'll continue the conversation. We'll go back to the O-line, talk about some reps that David Sanders had today. He was looking good out there. We'll get you caught up on that on the other side. Stick with us overtime here on Fan Run Radio.
Follow us on Twitter or X or whatever they're calling it these days at Fox Sports Knox. Fox Sports Knoxville. Fan Run Radio.
Located in Knoxville's historic Old City, Barley's offers great food, live music, the best draft beer selection in town, and now your new favorite place to watch sports. Their indoor projector is perfect for any weather, and they've revamped their upstairs area with more TVs to take in all of the action. Their menu features hand-battered chicken tenders, juicy burgers, fresh salads, and the tastiest pizza in Knoxville. You can enjoy their happy hour drink specials daily from open until 6 p.m. Barley's Tap Room and Pizzeria.
eBay Motors is here for the ride. Go ahead, feel your engine. Admire that perfectly installed exhaust. Your vehicle's moving along this freeway like it was made from fresh installs and a whole lot of love. With eBay Motors, you get over 122 million parts to keep it running. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, they'll be the perfect fit every time. Plus, at these prices, well, we're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
Is your crawl space damp, musty, or showing signs of mold? Call S&D Crawl Space and Insulation. From crawl space encapsulation and mold remediation to waterproofing, insulation, and dehumidifiers, S&D helps protect your home from moisture and poor air quality. Serving Knoxville and surrounding areas, call 865-602-0590. That's 865-602-0590. S&D Crawl Space and Insulation, protecting your home from the ground up.
You're listening to FM 105.7 and AM 1340, WKGN Knoxville, and W289CU Knoxville, Fan Run Radio.
Football season is all about winning game plans, and here at Knoxville Smiles, we believe that your smile deserves an all-star game plan too. Whether it's a routine cleaning, whitening, or restoring your confidence, Knoxville Smiles has the experience to keep your smile in championship form. Don't let dental pain blitz your game plan. Call Knoxville Smiles today and schedule your appointment, because a healthy smile is the ultimate home field advantage. Call 865-539-1776 or schedule online at knoxvillesmiles.com.
All right, back here on Overtime here on Fan Run Radio. We appreciate you hanging out with us. A video that we shared on the Fox Sports Knoxville social media pages earlier on Twitter. I believe William was the one that got it, but kind of a rep of David Sanders and Sham Umarov kind of going back and forth with one another, kind of blocking each other. I mean, they went at it for probably 6 to 8 seconds, and the coaches kind of, obviously they weren't fighting or anything, but it was just a rep of what they were doing. Coaches kind of come in and break it up, and you could see David Sanders felt like he won the rep. Umarov kind of felt like he won the rep. So I think those are really impactful things to get going in the offensive line because, again, we talk about the trenches and, how hard it is to win these games. You get down to the fourth quarter, game's 30 to 28, 30 27, you're up, or you're down by 3, and your offense has got to get into the end zone. Are you going to be able to play harder than that guy in the defensive line of scrimmage that's more tired than you? And that was something, again, we talked about, the Oklahoma game last season. You could see some tired players at the end of that game. Oklahoma's, strength and conditioning, I think, was a little bit better than yours. And I think with Derek Owens this year, the strength and conditioning is going to be better. But, when you look at reps like that between two guys, Umarov's not a small guy. I think I think he might even be an inch or two taller than David. I think David's 6'6". I think he's 6'7". So, two really big guys going at it, and obviously, David Sanders poised to have one of the better offensive lineman seasons in the SEC you would expect, but love to see reps like that in practice.
Yeah, that's kind of just you love to see it. That's when you got guys competing and going at it in practice that hard. That's what you love to see. Everybody knows the age-old adage that you hear 1,000 times, but you practice how you play how you practice. But it's absolutely true. If you don't take practice serious, you're not going to take the game serious. So you love seeing guys go hot and heavy at it in practice like this. I know when I played sports in high school, there was a big difference between every game depending on how we practice. So yeah, it's tired out, and a lot of people are tired of hearing of it, and they know about it. But it's absolutely 100% the truth.
You think with the Derek Owens, obviously we've seen the wide receivers be shredded. You've seen Deshaun Bishop be shredded. You've obviously seen the secondary be shredded. When you look at, pictures of an offensive lineman, a guy that's 6'6", 315 pounds, you're not going to accumulate a six-pack. You're not going to come out looking like the wide receivers and the running backs and the tight end groups and the secondary and some of the guys, in the linebacker room and stuff like that. But when you look at the guys in the trenches up front, do you think that could be the biggest impact that you see of the Derek Owens hire? Because we've talked about it. TK Keys looks bigger than when he got here. Deshaun Bishop looks massive. Faison and George look better. Guys in your secondary look bigger. But people don't really talk about the guys up front because, a big human is a big human. And again, you don't want your offensive linemen to look like those guys, body fat wise. You want them to be bigger individuals. So you might not be able to necessarily see it through photos, and that goes back to the mental stuff that we've talked about. Not only is this team going to be more physically prepared, I think the physicality, though, can kind of mentally prepare you. And if you're just physically better than the other team and can dominate at the line of scrimmage, that can mentally get into the other team's head. And I just think with the Derek Owens championship hire from Indiana, I think the offensive and defensive lines, winning at the line of scrimmage, I think, could be very impactful this season.
Yeah, obviously you want your skill guys to be a little bit leaner, but then you want your big boys up front to have some blubber, to have some weight. Mass moves mass, so that's what you kind of need. And when you're that size and you're 300 plus pounds, it's a lot easier for you to put on weight than it would be for somebody who's hovering around 190, 195. It's easier. It's a lot easier to put on 10 pounds of fat than it is to put on 10 pounds of muscle. 10 pounds of muscle would take somebody like a couple years to put on.
Yeah.
10 pounds of fat would take somebody probably a couple weeks, maybe a month.
You think that was part of the reason why we saw, some of the losses that Tennessee had? Because, you can't tell me that Vanderbilt at the line of scrimmage is a better team than Tennessee. Obviously, they won the game. Pavia was good. I mean, they had lots of playmakers on their team, whether that was an Eli Stowers or whoever it may have been on that roster. They had a good roster last season, but not a team that was beating you at the line of scrimmage. Now, if you were to have played Georgia or Texas last year, sure, that's a team that beats you at the line of scrimmage. But I go back to it again, when you're playing these SEC games, Tennessee's going to have a couple teams that are going to be better than them probably at the line of scrimmage. Texas is probably going to be a little better than you at the line of scrimmage. Texas A&M might be a little better than you at the line of scrimmage. But, I mean, Alabama, Kentucky, Vanderbilt, I mean, you have the 4- and 5-star talent. You have the David Sander blue chip guys. You have the guys that have played college football for a while. I think you should be able to at least compete with anybody that you play, maybe outside of Texas, at the line of scrimmage this year.
Yeah, and I think the only player on Texas's offensive line that maybe is better than Tennessee is Trevor Gooseby. Obviously he's probably the best lineman in the SEC, maybe the best lineman in the country. But yeah, I think Tennessee offense, like on the offensive line, matches up with anybody in the SEC. I'd venture to say maybe anybody in the country. This offensive line is probably the best that we've had in the Heupel era. Like it's just that good.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be interesting to see what this Derek Owens team looks like. And I know sometimes we sit here and it is kind of sunshine and flowers. Sometimes we're talking so highly about every position. I don't really think that there's any position that I don't feel good about outside of who the quarterback's going to be. I think outside of that, you feel pretty good that every position can be consistent. Obviously, you have to win games, and at the end of the day, it comes down to coaching, play calling, and decision making. But from a roster standpoint, I think this team is pretty good. And so that's why I sit up here and think that with a roster like this and a young quarterback, you can still win 9 games. And so that's why I do talk highly about this roster, and maybe I am a little higher than some other people about this team. I'm not going to be one to say that I think we make the college football playoff because I am real, but I also don't think this is a 6-6 team like some people say. So that's why I talk like that. I'm excited to watch the team. I'm excited to see what they look like. I think the Derek Owens hire, though, is going to be really impactful, and especially up front. So on the other side, we're going to shift to some college football rule changes that were introduced today. Some of them good, some of them not so good at all. We'll break it all down on the other side. Stick with us. It's overtime here on Fan Run Radio.
Football season is all about winning game plans, and here at Knoxville Smiles, we believe that your smile deserves an all-star game plan too. Whether it's a routine cleaning, whitening, or restoring your confidence, Knoxville Smiles has the experience to keep your smile in championship form. Don't let dental pain blitz your game plan. Call Knoxville Smiles today and schedule your appointment, because a healthy smile is the ultimate home field advantage. Call 865-539-1776 or schedule online at knoxvillesmiles.com.
Today, we raise a glass of Jameson Irish whiskey to the sport of football. Hear, hear!
To Gaelic football, born in Ireland in 1885 in its thrilling blend of soccer, rugby and basketball. On a massive field, 15 players kick or hand pass a round ball that scored points over a bar or into a net. No pads, no helmet, no sense.
Hear, hear!
To college football, which kicked off in 1869 when Rutgers beat Princeton 6-4 in the Battle of New Jersey. With 11 players and helmets and pads, teams battle on a 100-yard gridiron with explosive pass plays and hard-hitting tackles. Unless you're called for targeting.
Hear, hear! Since 1780, Jameson Irish whiskey has been enjoyed by sports fans all around the globe. Whether your football is Gaelic, American, or even soccer, we can all agree on super smooth Jameson Irish whiskey. Hear, hear!
Join us for the 3rd annual Fan Run Night at the Smokies, Thursday, August 13th at Covenant Health Park. Come hang out with the Fan Run crew and arrive early to pick up some swag as we watch the Smokies take on the Rocket City Trash Pandas on a Thirsty Thursday, featuring half-price draft beers all night long. It's the 3rd annual Fan Run Night with the Smokies, Thursday, August 13th. Listen to Fan Run Radio for details on how to score free tickets.
What's the difference between an ordinary EV and a Mercedes-Benz EV? The feeling. Electric is what gets you there. Mercedes-Benz is what moves you. in ways no other automaker can. Feel the freedom of the superbly versatile 7-seater EQB. Revel in the inspired, customizable comfort of the EQE sedan. Sense the brilliant intelligence of the EQE SUV. Discover the boundless capability of the EQS SUV. And luxuriate in the flagship meets spaceship magnificence of the EQS sedan. Every Mercedes-Benz electric vehicle offers the very latest MBUX voice-activated AI software, as well as remote access to a whole host of functions via the Mercedes Me Connect app. The vehicle's electric, the feeling all Mercedes, the choice all yours. Test drive a Mercedes-Benz electric today at your local dealer or learn more at mbusa.com/EQ.
eBay Motors is here for the ride. Go ahead, feel your engine. Admire that perfectly installed exhaust. Your vehicle's moving along this freeway like it was made from fresh installs and a whole lot of love. With eBay Motors, you get over 122 million parts to keep it running. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, they'll be the perfect fit every time. Plus, at these prices, well, we're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
All right, back here on Overtime, kicking off hour number 2, great hour number 1, talking about Tennessee fall camp. Now we're going to get into some national college football headlines with some new college football rule changes. Before we do so, though, reminder, tomorrow night's going to be Fan Run night at the Smokies game. Come on out, hang out with the Fan Run crew. The drive will be live from Covenant Health Park doing their show there before us. So it'll be an exciting night at the ballpark, and it'll be half-priced draft beer for anyone that comes. So at the stadium, that's the promotion tomorrow night. So maybe leave the keys at home, bring an Uber if you're planning to have a few draft beers while you watch the Smokies tomorrow night. But we'll move into some of these college football rule changes that'll be taking place this season. And Caleb, I don't know if you had a chance to read some of these. I, as a college football fan, think that some of them needed to be changed, and I'm in favor of some of these. Some of these, though, I do kind of question why they're being done. The first one that I like is the no suspension for the next game if you have targeting in the second half. The targeting rule as a whole, I think, needs to be changed. I think that's something that I'm not sure how they haven't necessarily looked at changing, like targeting as a whole. The rule technically, is supposed to be unless you hit someone and launch with like the crown of your helmet or it's a defenseless player. The issue is some of these targeting calls that you get, you had one in the Georgia Ole Miss game in the playoff. Some of these are just hard-nosed tackles that the referee sees you, maybe lead with the helmet a little bit and you hit someone's chest, but it's not a defenseless player. You're not going for the head or neck area. And truthfully, kind of leading with your helmet when you tackle, that's how you're kind of taught to tackle more. I understand, wrapping up is the safer way, but the helmet tackle has almost been what's been taught in football over the past couple decades. And I'm not one that wants to see players get injured, but at the same time, football is a hard-nosed sport. And, if you can't take someone drilling you in the chest after you catch a ball over the middle, maybe you shouldn't play football. That's what hard-hitting safeties are supposed to do. They're supposed to clothesline you when you catch a pass over the middle of the field and your quarterback puts you out on an island. That's what football's about. That's why I didn't play football. I'm too thin to play football. But if I did play football and someone tackled me hard, I wouldn't be crying that it should be targeting. And I'm not saying the players are doing that, but I just think that the targeting rule as a whole in college football needs to be changed. I do like the fact that they're going away from the suspension of the next game, because I've always thought that that's a little bit silly where if you commit, targeting at the end of the second half, you're good. But if you do it on the opening kickoff of the third quarter, then you're suspended for the next game. I didn't really agree with that. The only thing that I could see going bad here would be if you're in like the fourth quarter with like a few minutes left and your team's getting beat by 20 points and you intentionally target somebody and just as kind of because you're angry and you make a stupid IQ play and then there's no penalty for the next game and you're only suspended for the last 2 or 3 minutes of a game that's already out of hand. So I maybe they're going to look at a way where they can tell what the intent was, but at the end of the day, I just think targeting is called too much in college football. If you hit someone in the head or neck area and you launch, if it was something like that, an egregious penalty, go ahead and call it. But if it's your quarterback threw you a pass over the middle of the field and the safety hit you really hard in the chest and he led with his helmet a little bit, I don't think that should be targeting. So I think as a whole, though, this is a good change, but I still want to see the overall rule of targeting being changed completely.
Well, it's hard to say you think a rule should be changed when there's not even really a clear-cut definition for it.
Do we even know what targeting is right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's always, lead with the crown of the helmet, but then I'm watching a game in the middle of the week, and it's some guy leads with his shoulder but hits the guy in the helmet, and suddenly that's targeting, and then Kirk Herbstreit wants to crucify you on the street because of it. Like the way targeting is, it's like if there was an actual clear-cut explanation for it, yeah, sure. I don't think guys should be leading with the crown of their helmet and just knocking a dude's head off. That's a danger to themselves and to the other player. But we don't even have an actual definition of what targeting is. It's kind of just if the official wants to call it, he throws a flag, they review it for 25 minutes, and then he comes out, and then it either stands or it doesn't. And if it does stand, the guy's out for the first half of next week's game. You've seen targeting called all different types of ways. I mean, we haven't really I wouldn't say Tennessee's had like a targeting issue. I don't feel like we've had many guys ejected due to targeting over the last few years.
No,
it's frustrating, especially when they review it for 10 minutes.
The review process is not good.
No, the review process is terrible. You got a tiny little iPhone on the sideline, and I like what who is it? The ACC did it last year where they mic'd up the officials.
So you kind of hold them accountable for what they're saying to the replay review system. I like that too. I want to say the Big 12 was maybe going to do that this season. I think there's another conference that's doing that. Maybe not the Big 12, but I'm pretty sure I remember seeing that other conferences were going to do that. I would love to see the SEC do that. I don't think there's any chance Greg Sankey's going to allow that, though.
No, and something that would be a lot harder to do, but the NFL does, is where they just have a New York where they have a designated review and then they send the call to the official. I think that would be a lot better than asking an official to sit on the sideline of a 100,000 seat stadium with a tiny little iPhone.
Well, I think that's what ACC was doing. They had their review system that was going back to their headquarters in Charlotte, and then I think they were making the call. I don't know that the person in Charlotte was necessarily making the call himself, but he was going through with the officials what criteria meets this. Because if you hear that on camera and you know that the entire world is listening to you and you're sitting there talking to the ACC Review Center in Charlotte and the guy on the other end of the line says, well, we got to look at this to make sure that this, meets the criteria. What did you see here? And the official says, well, he led with, the crown of his helmet, hit the head or neck area. And then you look at it on film and you say, well, no, it actually hit his shoulder pad. And then, the official's held responsible and says, okay, I got it wrong. We're going to reverse the call. Or you go into the review system and you say what you think happened. You look at the video. Okay, we were correct. So I think things like that are – I like that the ACC did that because, again, it keeps the officials accountable for their actions. Because I'm not saying that officials are going out there to – change the dynamic of the game or anything, but
they have egos just like everybody
else. Egos. You see it in college baseball all the time. A guy has a strike zone for one team that's a little bit different than the other. Or in basketball, they're out there playing hard in an Elite Eight game and they're calling fouls all over the place. I go back to the Michigan-Tennessee game this year. Tennessee was not going to win that basketball game by any stretch of the imagination. Michigan was, multitudes better than Tennessee was. But you got your big men in foul trouble early to start the game because I thought that the officiating was poor. Again, it had no impact on the game, but it did put your big men in foul trouble. And in college football, if your number one safety gets taken out of the game, is ejected for the game because he put a hard hit on someone's shoulder pad or because he knocked the wind out of somebody, that shouldn't be targeting. There was I was watching like a Conference USA Tuesday night game last year, I remember. Middle Tennessee State and somebody, and it was the most egregious targeting call I'd ever seen in my life. I mean, it was just a good, hard-nosed tackle. They called targeting. The guy was ejected. And to me, that's just wrong. I mean, guys go out there and practice the entire week, practice all fall camp, and then they're ejected for a hard hit. I just don't understand why the targeting rule, how it's been a rule for so long, and we still don't understand what the actual definition of the rule is word for word in a rule book, because it seems to change every game, every season, every conference. There's no universal targeting rule, which is the problem.
Yeah, and I think we could sit here the entire show and list off things that need to be changed from an officiating perspective. But it's just another one of those things where there are several other issues that they could tackle, and then this is what they choose to do. I mean, yes, targeting is a really big issue when it comes to officiating, but they didn't even fix the number one gripe that people have with targeting, which was the fact that there's no definition for it. They didn't even talk about or change anything about the number one problem people have, which is the injuries, the injury faking. There's a simple, clear-cut issue for that they refuse to have. They still won't hold any officials accountable. They won't make officials available to the media in any capacity for whatever reason. I don't know why they won't do that. But, I mean, I could sit here all day and just list off things.
Well, one of the other things that they changed, I like this one as well. OPI now is a 10-yard penalty. I think that the OPI is something, too, that's, I wouldn't say it's overused. OPI is probably one of the least called penalties there are in college football. I mean, you don't see OPI very often. Your team's probably only going to be
called very often.
Yeah,
it happens a lot.
Yeah, but like your team's probably only going to be called for an offensive pass interference, a handful of times a year. I'm thinking back. I mean, Brazel had the one against Mississippi State, right, where they reversed a big chunk play. Outside of that, I can't really think of too many offensive pass interferences.
And that one against Mississippi State.
That one was a horrible one. And some of those are just kind of hand fighting with the corner. The corner's trying to get in position. Wide receiver's kind of trying to extend himself, and guys' arms kind of get tangled up with one another. I think OPI is another rule that you could almost go back and go to the chalkboard and the drawing board and figure out why are we calling this, and what are the realm of qualifications to determine that an OPI is happening.
Yeah, I mean, it's unrealistic and it's not going to happen, but the only way to really fully resolve offensive pass interference is to have a designated official on every receiver.
Right.
Just looking at them. And obviously that's never going to happen. That can't happen. That's impossible. But a lot of, I would say over 80% of offensive pass interference that could be called is called when the ball is still in the quarterback's hands.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of hand fighting off of routes, guys trying to get out of their break and getting held up. And I think you see defensive holding be called more so in that instance, but you don't really see that get called either. But it's a really hard issue to police as an official.
Well, the next one is probably the biggest one. This is going to be head coaches now have 2 replay challenges per game. If you win one of your first 2, you're awarded a third. I don't really understand this one. If you go 2 for 2, I think you should be able to get the third, because you obviously, you overruled the official twice. The official messed up on his job. You got, the extra one. And I would go as far as to saying, honestly, you should probably be able to replay. I mean, I understand it would, and that's going to be a point that I'm going to go into. I'll give my other thought of it. I think 3 reviews in a game could take too long. If each coach is getting 6, initiated reviews that take, 5 minutes, I mean, that adds 30 minutes to the game.
Yeah.
And college football games already, I don't complain about the length of a college football game because I love watching college football. But, I mean, you see some of these SEC, Saturday night games that have, 4 or 5 minute, commercial breaks, just media commercial breaks. Sometimes these are 4-hour games. These are games that start at 8 o'clock and don't end until midnight. I don't know that you want college football games going 4.5 hours.
Yeah, no, I think one of the biggest gripes with that for people is with the replays is one of the biggest things is the certain plays just being unreviewable. I don't think there should be any plays that are not reviewable, but then the games would take forever. But then my pushback to that is sell less ad spots.
Sure.
Don't run 6 minutes of ads after every possession. It's a very simple fix, and obviously they're going to sell as many ads as they possibly can because it's generating money, it's generating wealth. But I think that's an easy fix that is, again, unrealistic and can't happen because you're not gonna not just stop selling ad spots.
I think, like, what I was gonna say was if you win your first two, if you've beat the official twice, you probably should just get unlimited, like, until you lose.
Yeah.
But then at that point, it goes back to the fact of, like, do you want 4.5-4 hour game? I'm not saying every game, each coach is going to get 6 challenges. That would
Well, do they
be
get
rare.
do they get a third challenge, or is it
You get a third challenge if you win one of the first 2.
okay? I don't understand that. I think
That's what
you
I'm
should
saying.
Just retain your challenges.
I think if you go 1 of 2, you should be X'd out at the second one.
I think it should be like the OBS system with baseball. If you win, you retain it.
I think that's fair. The problem with the baseball one is, well, no problem. Actually, the thing about the baseball one is it's instant. It goes straight to the video board, and you can tell this pitch was 0.1 inches off the plate, or this pitch was 0.1 in the strike zone. So
yeah, but this is worse though. Like
that's what I'm saying. This would take so much longer. We talk about how long the reviews take.
Yeah.
Could you imagine 6 of these a game?
Yeah, I think something had to be done with the challenges because coaches were almost never using them. First off, because if you lose a timeout. I don't know if that's a rule. Was that something that was changed here?
Well, that's not what was put in the verbiage of this, but that was in the old system. That was why you didn't want to waste a section, especially in the second half.
Yeah.
If you're down by 7 points with 4 minutes left, even if it's a close call, you can't afford to do that and lose your challenges because you need all 3 timeouts to stop the clock at the end of the game.
Yeah, that was one of the biggest reasons we never saw challenges used, was because I would much rather give up maybe a potential possession and punt the ball away because we were 6 inches short of a first down when if we reviewed it, we might have gotten that first down, than review it, end up being wrong, and then having only 1 or 2 timeouts left with 6 minutes left to go in the game. I mean, that's a no-brainer in my opinion.
The next one is, some of these, I'll read it. An unsportsmanlike penalty will be awarded if any of these gestures are used simulating a weapon, the nose wipe signal, slashing the throat, pulling or pushing an opponent off a pile once the play is dead, and dead ball contact fouls such as pushing and shoving after a play. Come on, guys. We're playing football. Okay?
Pushing off of the pile, I mean, that could be just trying to protect your guy.
We're not, we're playing football. This is not tennis. This is not golf. This is football. You're going out there and you're putting your body on the line. If you're in a pile and someone shoves somebody, that happens literally every play in football almost. Someone shoves somebody off of somebody. So
There's a pile, that's happening.
Yeah, exactly. I don't understand how you would even police this. And the slashing of the throat, I understand that. That
was a Jalen Wright signature.
It was, and the slashing of the throat, whatever. If you point a gun, thing at somebody with a hand gesture of that,
guys,
that should be a penalty.
A lot of guys did that.
If you do like the bow and arrow thing when someone's on the ground, sure, penalize for someone like that. But the nose wipe, I mean, what are we doing? And then is some of these, the one that a lot of the DBs do is they do the seatbelt thing.
Oh yeah.
Is that going to be a penalty? Because that's a penalty. That's horrible. I mean, that's the worst.
It's like
that's the best celebration there is in college football and football as a whole.
It's like those annoying first and second grade teachers that have a new list of banned words at the beginning of every school year. That's kind of just what this feels like. It feels like we have a lot more pressing matters that we need to be dealing with in terms of college football, and we don't need to be dealing with wiping your nose being a potential ejectable offense if you already have an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty.
I guess the way they look at it is, the nose wipe and then the finger pointed down thing can be a signal of other things, obviously. But at the same time, they're playing football. I don't, and then dead ball contact or, pushing a player off the pile. I mean, again, we're playing football. You're going to get pushed around a little bit by somebody.
Every time
happens.
There's a fumble, are we going to issue 17 unsportsmanlike conduct penalties?
I just don't understand how you're necessarily going to police this because, again, like if a loose ball happens and there's 10 guys on top of a pile and some guy comes in, he exchanges some words with another player, kind of shoves him away or something. Are you really flagging 15 yards for that? I mean, there's no way that they can actually be policing it like that much. There's just no chance.
We got sports like hockey where if you drop your gloves, you can just full on fist fight.
You can box somebody
ice.
on the ice. Yeah.
But then football, if you wipe your nose in the wrong fashion, you possibly get ejected from the game.
Yeah, I don't understand.
That's
those.
Ridiculous.
I understand that they're trying to keep the sportsmanship in the game and stuff, but the issues of college football where you see someone like genuinely show bad sportsmanship are pretty far in between. Most of it is just you want your team to win, and especially if you're at an SEC or Big Ten stadium that has 100,000 people and you're the away team or something. Going to be a little chippy playing the home team when, that's just part of the game. That's part of emotions that happen when you're 18 to 23 years old you're playing football. You're not playing golf. You're not playing baseball. You're not playing some of these sports that aren't as physical. You're playing one of the most physically demanding sports there is.
Yeah. I mean, you're literally it's ridiculous to me. I don't understand how why the nose wipe to me is just absolute the most egregious thing that I've probably seen all summer, and that's saying a lot.
Last one, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say if you got an unsportsmanlike penalty earlier in the game and you wipe your nose, you're gonna get ejected from the game. Like if you in the pushing and shoving thing, to me, if you have like a veteran official, they're going to be able to keep the chippiness to a level. It's not going to get out of hand. You have games that get chippy and you have some pushing and shoving after the play. It rarely turns into a benches clearing kind of brawl. Obviously that happens, but I don't think making it an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty if you shove a guy after a play is going to prevent anything like that. That's still going to happen.
Sure. The last one's not really, it doesn't really have any effect on most teams in the FBS. It's just player to coach through the green dot. The player to coaching is allowed at all NCAA levels. I think maybe some conferences in the FCS hadn't developed it yet. And obviously like D2 and D3 football, I guess they didn't have it. But again, that rule not going to affect power conference football. That's already been in effect. But as a whole, again, I think a couple of these rules are good. I like the OPI one. I think what they did with targeting is good. I just would have liked to have seen targeting as a whole be changed. OPI, same thing. I think what they changed in the ruling with it is good, but I just would have liked to seen the entire rule changed. And then the unsportsmanlike ones, again, completely understand if you're the gesture of a weapon, things like that, or the slashing of the throat, but pulling or pushing an opponent off a pile once the play is dead. I don't understand that one. But
I don't think we're going to see that one called very much.
I hope not, because if you're calling penalties for that's sad. Again, you're playing football. People are going to get their feelings hurt. People are going to get pushed and shoved around a little bit. If you can't deal with that, go play something else.
You got Shane Beamer and Brett Bielema standing past the numbers,
screaming at one another in the bowl game. Yeah.
Would that have been an ejectable offense?
Maybe they would have told Brett he's got to head back to his car. He's going to have to drive back to Illinois.
Walk.
Shane Beamer, I don't necessarily know that it. I think Shane Beamer getting ejected, honestly, would be pretty funny. But
it'd be hilarious.
I don't think Brett Bielema is the type of person that you want to mess around with after getting ejected. He doesn't seem like the type of guy that would take something like that
I think
well.
Brett Bielema's probably got about 50, 60 pounds on Shane.
I think Eli Drinkwitz getting ejected might be one of the most funny things you could ever see in football. He would fall. He probably would have one of the temper tantrums of all temper tantrums.
There's a lot of coaches in the SEC that I like, and then there's SEC coaches like Shane Beamer and Eli Drinkwitz.
So I don't have anything necessarily against Eli Drinkwitz. I think he's really corny.
He just has a weird animosity towards
He's
Tennessee.
got kind of a tick to him, but he's a really good coach. He's maybe not really good. He's not like an elite coach, but he's done good things. He's an above average coach for what he's done at Missouri with their roster and coming over from App State. I mean, he beat Ohio State in the New Year's Six Bowl. They've had some good seasons. But he's kind of a cornball sometimes.
I don't know if it's because we put up 50, what was it, 52 on him 2 years in a row, but he just
21 and 22. I mean, you destroyed him.
Yeah, he has this really like anytime, like especially it happened at media days. Anytime he does these interviews with people, like, there was one interview I saw. They asked him, "What's the worst place to play?" And he just fired off Tennessee, just like.
And it's such an odd rivalry because like Missouri, I mean. They were added to the SEC in the last 15 years.
Yeah.
They're the least SEC school there is of any school in the When you think of Missouri, you think of like the Big 12.
I think Oklahoma and Texas are more SEC schools.
Oh, 100%. Missouri, because Missouri's further north. I mean, Missouri is,
and they play.
It's right there with Kansas. It's basically in the middle of the country almost.
During the East, when it was divided into divisions, they played in the East, and they were one of the furthest West teams in the conference.
Yeah, I don't. It's such a weird like rivalry to have,
and it's just Drinkwitz too. It's like
the fans don't.
Fans
I don't think. I mean, I've never seen really Tennessee fans and Missouri fans get into it on social media outside of like a game day, or the week leading in. But I mean, just an odd school for him to not like. Kansas, Arkansas, teams like that would make sense, but Tennessee's 700 miles away from your campus.
Yeah,
it's just an odd rivalry.
Speaking of like teams like that, we got a couple minutes here, so we can talk about something random. I saw this graphic, and it was teams that had won how many times each team had won the SEC basketball tournament championship.
Okay,
Georgia Tech has won one, oddly enough.
Yeah, well, Georgia Tech, Tulane, Swanee, those are founding members of the SEC. Swanee is now a Division III school. Tulane obviously is in the American, but Tulane's one of those schools to me that I wish Tulane honestly like had obviously it's a small private school. It's kind of has the rich kid element to it, the stereotype behind it. It's kind of like an SMU or a TCU at the the group of 5 level. Tons of money coming into that university, and SMU was like that. They were in the American too, and then obviously went to the ACC. But I kind of wish Tulane was a power conference school. Maybe not in the SEC, obviously, maybe in like the Big 12 or the ACC, but I think power conference football should be played in New Orleans. I think New Orleans is, say what you want about the city. It's a big enough market to have a power conference,
if
football.
Mississippi State can be an SEC school, I don't know why Tulane can't.
And people would travel to Tulane to watch their team play. When people go to LSU, they go to Bourbon Street, even though Baton Rouge and New Orleans are like 90 minutes away. I mean, you make a trip to New Orleans. People would travel to New Orleans to watch their team play an away game at Tulane.
Yeah, but the reason I brought that up is because Georgia Tech can claim more SEC basketball tournament championships than
the Missouri,
South Carolina, Missouri, and Texas A&M.
Yeah, South Carolina's been pretty irrelevant in basketball the past couple of years.
South Carolina is.
They made that Final Four a handful of years ago. Yeah. They were good when they had. I'm blanking on their coach's name from back then. I can see him right in front of me, but they were a good program back then. But obviously now, they just don't.
They're not good at anything right now.
Yeah, I think they put a lot of money obviously into their women's program because they have the women's basketball program rolling. And I'm assuming they're good at some of the less revenue sports. But baseball, they've been abysmal the past couple of years, but they just hired Schnall from Coastal Carolina. So, I would expect them to be much more competitive in baseball. Historically, they're a very good baseball team. They won back-to-back national championships 10, 12 years ago. I think they'll be back to top of the SEC in a couple of years with that hire, three seasons probably. But, football... they'll be better this season, but basketball, they're not good at all. But
Missouri's got to hope that something gets a little bit clicking with football because was it them or South Carolina that went? I think it was them that went 0-16 like a year or two ago.
Well, Missouri, and Missouri in baseball. They don't put any money into their baseball stadium. Looks like a nice high school field. I like their coach. They won a game in the SEC tournament against Ole Miss. But they don't have any money in their program, and football obviously is their main, that's the main sport that they're good at. Basketball, they'll have, a good year here and there where they'll go a couple games over 500 in SEC play, but baseball, they're abysmal. Football, they're pretty much average, and basketball, they're pretty much average. I would say Ole Miss not Ole Miss, Missouri and South Carolina right now probably have the two weakest Big Three sports, at their school right now.
Well, speaking of baseball stadiums, this is something that shocked me during the end of last season when I was watching some regional plays. I didn't know what UCLA's baseball stadium looked like until
it's tiny. It's not big.
It's terrible.
Yeah,
it is horrible. For as historic of a baseball program as they are, obviously they're not like the greatest baseball program ever, but they're historically pretty good at baseball.
Yeah. I mean, they had a lot of MLB draft picks on that team this year.
Yeah, that's a terrible stadium.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of teams on the West Coast. Southern Cal, they kind of got back into it this season. They lost in the UNC Supers, but they're historically, college baseball blue blood. They're one of the best college baseball teams. You could make the argument that they're the greatest college baseball program ever. They didn't even play in their home stadium the past couple of years. So, but West Coast baseball is a lot different than East Coast baseball. The only schools in the West Coast that really have elite home baseball atmospheres are Oregon and Oregon State. Those have really good atmospheres, but most of the California schools, their college baseball stadiums are less than to be desired. Arizona State has a pretty good one. I thought their regional this year was pretty good that Ole Miss won.
I guess it's just they can't fill them, and there's no point to build
college baseball out there is also just not as big as it is in the Southeast.
Because they can't even fill their football stadiums. Yeah. I think that's more so just their location.
College baseball is college sports in general on the West Coast just aren't as big.
Yeah.
And college sports in the South, obviously in the SEC country, are massive. But college baseball in the SEC, the ACC, and even the Sun Belt. The Sun Belt is basically... The Sun Belt's a bit better than the Big Ten, and the Sun Belt's kind of right there with the Big 12 when it comes to teams being selected. You have Southern Miss, who's obviously always a good team. We played them in Hattiesburg. You have Coastal, who's been obviously really good national runner-ups in 25. Georgia Southern's usually a pretty good program. They weren't good this year, but they're usually pretty good. The Sun Belt usually has good programs. Troy's obviously really good. So they made Omaha this season. They're a historic program. So the Sun Belt's the real deal. College baseball in the South is... it's booming everywhere now, but it's always been booming in the South. But when we come back on the other side, we're going to make our college football playoff fields that we believe, who we believe is going to make the field. I think me and Caleb and I are probably going to have some of the same selections for some of these conferences, but we'll break that down on the other side and put in the chat who you would have as your 12-team college football playoff going into the fall this season of 2026. We'll break it all down on the other side. Stick with us here on Overtime, Fan Run Radio.
Damp, musty, or showing signs of mold? Call S&D Crawl Space and Insulation. From crawl space encapsulation and mold remediation to waterproofing, insulation, and dehumidifiers, S&D helps protect your home from moisture and poor air quality. Serving Knoxville and surrounding areas, call 865-602-0590. That's 865-602-0590. S&D Crawl Space and Insulation, protecting your home from the ground up.
Have you ever found yourself wishing your clothes looked brand new again? Whether it's your favorite suit, that little black dress, or your comfy winter coat, Crown Cleaners can make it happen. From stubborn stains to delicate fabrics, the expert team at Crown Cleaners uses the latest cleaning technology to ensure your clothes come back looking and feeling fresh. Visit one of their 2 area locations, Kingston Pike on Bearden Hill or South North Shore Drive near Dunkin' Donuts. Online at crowncleaners.com. Crown Cleaners, a tradition of excellence.
Attention service members and veterans. Introducing the Griffin Law Firm, your trusted ally in military legal matters. From court-martials to benefit claims, at Griffin Law, your mission is their mission. Here's VFL Marshall Griffin.
As a veteran and retired military attorney, I've successfully defended lifelong benefits and helped preserve professional futures. So I know that when you hire a military justice lawyer, you maximize your chance to get relief. With my unique experience, I can advocate for you because there's no military matter that's too big or too small. Let us help you make these critical decisions that could affect the rest of your life. Remain silent. Request counsel. Call Griffin Law.
For a free consultation, call 888-707-4282. That's 888-707-4282. Or just visit griffinlawdefense.com.
Located in Knoxville's historic Old City, Barley's offers great food, live music, the best draft beer selection in town, and now your new favorite place to watch sports. Their indoor projector is perfect for any weather, and they've revamped their upstairs area with more TVs to take in all of the action. Their menu features hand-battered chicken tenders, juicy burgers, fresh salads, and the tastiest pizza in Knoxville. You can enjoy their happy hour drink specials daily from open until 6 p.m. Barley's Tap Room and Pizzeria.
What kind of day is it? It's a White Claw day. Grab a pack, grab your friends. Everything else in life can wait. Your friends shouldn't. Let's go. White Claw. Grab life by the claw. Please drink responsibly. Hard seltzer with flavors. White Claw Seltzer Works, Chicago, Illinois.
All right, back here on Overtime here on Fan Run Radio. Good show so far. Caleb and I hanging in with you for the next 25-ish minutes. We're now going to make our 12-team college football playoff bracket of the teams that we think are going to make the college football playoff. We can do this. I was thinking in the break, we can do this separately or we can kind of make our own together. I almost think that would be easier if we just did that.
Yeah, I got one filled out right in front of me, so we can do either or.
Who is your G5 team? We'll start with that.
Mine was
the 12
Memphis.
seed. Okay, you have Memphis, so you think Charles Huff is going to be the team to beat. I think
it's weird because it's weird because like obviously are you going to say Boise State?
I was going to say Boise State, and my reasoning behind Boise State is a couple things. I think Boise State has developed championship culture. I don't think Spencer Danielson is the best Group of 5 head coach there is right now. In fact, I think he's had some pretty poor coaching over the past couple of years, but they've still had really good rosters. I don't think he's as aggressive enough as he should be. I think Maddox Masden he did not have a great season last year as their quarterback. He regressed from what he did in 2024 when they played Penn State in the playoffs. But at the line of scrimmage, they're going to be better than any other G5 team on the defensive line and the offensive line. That's just how Boise State's going to be. Now, Boise State's going to have some tough games. They play Memphis in an out-of-conference game this season. But my other thing about Memphis is, to me, there's like 7 teams that could win the American Conference this year. Memphis is going to have to win either the UNLV game week 0 at UNLV, or they're going to have to win the Boise game week 3. And then they're going to have to probably either go undefeated or only have one loss in the American.
Do they play Tulane?
Yes, I believe they play them Thanksgiving week.
Because for me, it was either Memphis or UNLV. Because I feel like if Jackson Arnold can go into UNLV and light it up, I think they can easily have the best team in the American. Because Jackson Arnold, you could say what you want to say about Jackson Arnold.
Well, they're in the Mountain West though. UNLV.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I think the UNLV. I think, in my opinion, UNLV and New Mexico out of the Mountain West have a better chance of making it than Memphis does, because I just think that the American is such a deep conference.
Yeah, because it's not just like, sorry to cut you off, it's not just like the absolute, here's the best Group of 5 team gets the bid. It's
you have to have a little bit of the favored draw, no doubt. Yeah. I think when you look at it, I mean, it to me, the American's just going to self-cannibalize. There's too many good teams. UTSA is really good. Tulane's going to be good. ECU's going to be good. Army's going to be good. Navy's going to be good. You look at like the Mountain West, you're going to have North Dakota State. They're going to be good. UNLV is going to be good. New Mexico is going to be good. Hawaii's going to be pretty good. UNLV will be good.
If North Dakota State comes in here and lights it up just straight out of the
UNLV is probably, I think North Dakota State probably goes 8-4. They have some tough road spots. They play at Hawaii. They play at New Mexico. They play some tough road games that they're probably going to drop, and they'll probably drop a game to Wyoming or Nevada or somebody like that they shouldn't lose to. But them against Jacksonville State week 1 or week 0 is going to be fun too. That's a really good out of conference game. But you're going Memphis. I'll go Boise State. I'm just going to blindly trust again. I mean, I know what Boise State has on their roster this year. They have the best G5 running back duo in the country with Dylan Riley and Sire Gaines. But I just think that you can trust them in the Pac-12 opposed to even Memphis, even though Memphis might be, and we'll see. Week 3, that game will define a lot when they play each other. Yeah. But again, I just think that the American's going to have too many competitive teams where they're just going to kind of self-cannibalize themselves.
Yeah, I'll say this to your point. Like, you could have an American team that ends the season 10-2, wins the American, and is a really, really good team, but gets picked, but gets kind of left to the side by maybe an 11-1 UNLV who won their conference, but maybe wasn't as good on paper or just like eye test wise, but just gets the bid just because of the record.
Yeah, I think the group of 5 to me is always the most interesting spot because you have 70 FBS teams playing for one spot in the college football playoff. I think it's really fun to watch and keep up with throughout the year. Obviously, I like Group of 5 football, but I just think that that's one of the better races in college football is who makes the G5 spot. Who did you have as your number one? I guess we'll go 1 through. We'll say our 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then obviously 12 will play 5, 11 plays 6, 10, 7, 9, 8. But 1, 2, 3, and 4 get their buys. Who was your number 1 seed?
My number 1 seed was Notre Dame.
Okay, so mine's Oregon. I think Oregon this season.
Oregon's mine too.
I think Oregon wins the Big Ten this season. I just think that, I think returning Dante Moore, you have a really good receiver room, Jeremiah McClellan, DeCorian Moore, Iverson Hooks, Evan Stewart's back to full health this season. You have 2 really good players coming off the edge, and then in the secondary, you have Coy Parrish and you have Brandon Finney. I think Oregon probably has the best, if not the best defense in the country this season. It's a top 5 unit. And then on top of that, you have one of the best offenses in the country as well. Can they win the big games against the Ohio States and the Indiana in the Big Ten championship? I'm not sure, but I think Oregon probably maximum loses 1 game this season. I think Oregon makes the Big Ten championship, and I think it's Dan Lanning's time to finally make some noise and make a college football playoff is a top 4 seed. Is the 1 seed. Obviously, they did it 2 seasons ago, and they got it was the straight bye into the Rose Bowl, and they came out. They look horrible. Jeremiah Smith had like 200 receiving yards. I think this is the year where Oregon, though, could make some national championship noise. I just think the roster's too good not to.
Yeah, and my kind of argument for putting Notre Dame at number 1 is, first of all, they're minus 800 to make the playoff just in general, and they play one game all year. They play Miami. That's it. And they get that at home. If they win that game against Miami at home, they're the number 1 overall seed. They're going to finish the season 12-0.
Yeah.
So it's based off just the schedule they play. I also think they just have probably one of the best rosters in the country. I have them as my number 1 preseason ranked team. I really like CJ Carr. I really like kind of everything this Notre Dame team has. But that's just kind of how I see the schedule. They play 1 game all year, and they get them at home.
Sure. Number 2?
Oregon for me is number 2.
Okay. So I have Texas at 2. I think Texas and Georgia play each other in the SEC championship game.
We all know how that one's going to go.
We all know that, well, I have Texas winning the game. That's why I have Texas 2. Yeah. I think Texas has the second or third. I think they have the second or third best roster in the country. I picked Texas at the beginning of the season to make the national championship. So I'm just going to ride with Texas on this one. Number 3, you could go kind of various different ways here. You could pick the ACC champion. You could pick the Big 12 champion. You could go with another, obviously, a team that lost in the conference championship game. I'm going to go Miami. I think Miami has a chance to beat Notre Dame. And then I think Miami, I'm not going to say they're going to walk through the ACC because they lost 2 games in the ACC last season and made the college football playoff. But again, I look at Miami's roster. I know they lose Hakeem Mesidor. They lose Ruben Maine coming off the edges, but they bring in Damon Wilson. I think the secondary is going to be good. The trenches for them are going to be the only concern. They're going to have a freshman starting on the offensive line at one of their tackle positions. The thing is, I think they're good enough in the trenches to win the ACC. Are they good enough in the trenches to win games in the playoff? I don't know. I think they honestly bring in, I think Beck is, he was a solid quarterback last season, but he lost you a couple games. I think Darian Mensah has the higher ceiling. I think you have a really good wide receiver room. Cam Vaughn comes in from West Virginia. And then Malachi Toney is obviously going to be your number 1 option. And then, you bring back Mark Fletcher, who's one of the top running backs in the country. I'll go Miami 3. They win the ACC.
I got Miami at 3 as well.
Okay.
And I got Miami just being 12-1 after the ACC championship week, with that 1 loss being Notre Dame.
Okay, and then your 4 team?
My 4 team's Georgia. I think Georgia wins the SEC and then sneaks into that last 4 bye.
Okay, so mine's going to be Indiana because I think that the top of the Big Ten again this season is just going to be slightly better than the top of the SEC because I think you're going to have Ohio State, Indiana, and Oregon as top 5 seeds. I think Indiana is going to be that conference runner-up that slides in as the 4 seed. So I'm going to give it to Indiana. Anyone that listens to the show knows that I'm high on Indiana this season. I think Josh Hoover can cut down on his turnovers. I think their running back room is going to be better than last season. I think the offensive line is going to be better than last season. You lose Omar Cooper and you lose Elijah Surratt in the wide receiver room. You bring in Chaz Preston from Tulane. You bring in Nick Marsh from Michigan State. And then on the defensive side of the ball, you return a lot of production. For as many pieces as you lost, you still bring back Tyree Tucker. You bring back Elijah Hardy. We'll see if A.J. Harris can get back to the player that he was at Georgia a couple seasons ago in the secondary. And then up front, I mean, Stephen Daly's returning. That's a massive piece. And then they bring in the two defensive tackle guys and edge coming over from Kansas State. Those guys were really good as well last season. I think Indiana is going to be a top 4 team. I'm going to say they lose in Indianapolis, though, to Oregon in the Big Ten championship.
Yeah, I agree with you there. That's kind of how I have it playing out too. I have Oregon at number 2, and then I have Indiana at 5. I just think with a year that you have a Notre Dame that makes that one of those 4 first round buys, I think it would be tough to put 2 teams of one conference in there, because it would be really hard for me to leave out a 12-1 Miami ACC champ in there. Then it would be, again, really difficult for me not to put the SEC champ in that in one of those first 4 spots.
Okay, and then your 5 team you said was Indiana. Okay, so my 5 is going to be Ohio State. I think Ohio State barely misses the Big Ten championship, plays a highly competitive schedule. I have basically them and Georgia as the 2, the Big Ten and the SEC team that are not going to be in the top 4, because I think, like I said, I think the top of the Big Ten will be slightly better than the top of the SEC. So Ohio State's going to get that 5 seed. Georgia's actually going to be my 7 seed, because I think Notre Dame's going to be the 6 seed. I think they're either going to go 11-1 or 12-0. I think that slides them into the 6th position. Georgia could get a little bit boned in the spot going to the 7, but again, I think Georgia will still beat the 10. We'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, your 6th position.
I have Texas at number 6. And then I have Ohio State at number 7, just because I do think Ohio State is going to be a little bit of a regressed team. I think they're going to be really good on offense. Obviously, everybody knows they're returning Julian Say and Jeremiah Smith, but for the 2nd year in a row, they're replacing at least 8 guys on that defensive side of the ball. You saw them not really skip much of a beat last year, because they just were pretty deep at that position, but they're replacing 8 guys on defense this year, 8 starters. They only got 3 guys coming back. So you're going to really need some young guys to step up in that defensive room for Ohio State. And I just don't know if it's going to gel 2 years in a row.
Okay. And then the 7 seed, I said my 7 seed was Georgia. Yeah, your 7 Ohio State. Okay. And then the 8 seed would be playing Georgia, right? As the 7.
8 plays 9.
Or 8 plays 9. Yeah. Okay, yeah. 8 will play 9. That's where I messed up. Okay.
So I have Ole Miss at my 8 and then Texas Tech at my 9. So I have that being a Texas Tech at Ole Miss.
Okay. So I have Texas Tech 8, and then I actually had Texas A&M 9. So I think Texas A&M will slide into the playoff.
That would be a fantastic game.
I think Texas A&M is a team that kind of barely misses the playoff this year, because I think when you look at their roster, it's pretty similar to last season. So I have that. And then, so that's 8, 9. And then.
Who's your 10?
My 10 would be, I'm trying to think. It's going to be another Big Ten team. Another Big Ten team is going to get in. Part of me wants to say Washington, because I think that's one of the games. If Indiana loses a game, I think it could be to Washington at Washington.
Yeah, it's going to be tough.
But I also think that if Michigan beats Oklahoma, I think Michigan is probably in the playoff, possibly.
Yeah.
Because I think Bryce Underwood will get better this season, and I really like the Kyle Whittingham hire. So I think it's going to come down to one of those teams. I'll say right now it's going to be Washington, because I think I trust Damon Williams a little bit more than Bryce Underwood at this point in his career.
It would be tough for me with Michigan too, because they play the big 3 in the Big Ten. They play Indiana, Oregon, and Ohio State, and then both those Oregon Ohio State games are on the road.
So I'll go Washington, and then who was your 11 seed?
My 11 seed my 10 seed is Louisville.
Okay,
and then my 11 seed's LSU. I think Louisville is going to be 11-1 going into the ACC championship game. They're going to end up losing to
Now, Miami. If they beat Ole Miss week 1, they could really have a chance to make it.
Yeah,
they could get in over Ole Miss at that point.
Let me pull up their.
And then quickly, I'll say my 11 because we got to hit a break here in a second. 11 for me is actually going to be Houston. I've been high on Houston all offseason. I think the Big 12 gets 2 teams in this season opposed to, obviously, the ACC last season was the whole reason why you had 2 G5 teams in. I think the Big 12, though, is just a little bit deeper of a conference than the ACC. The ACC is going to have good teams. You're going to have SMU. You're going to have NC State, Cal, Clemson. But I just think the Big 12 with Utah, Texas Tech, Houston, I think they're very comparable. And if Houston were to get that signature win week 3 against Texas Tech, which I think is possible, I think they're live on the money line in that game. I think Houston has a real chance to make the playoff. Houston won 10 games last season, and Willie Fritz is a real good coach.
LSU.
Yeah, so
I'll give my. I'm really, really, really high on Houston, but I'll give my reasoning to why I left them out after we come back.
All right, we'll hit one final break. Stick with us. We'll figure out the rest of this 12-team playoff on the other side. It's overtime.
Congratulations. You found sports radio that doesn't suck. This is Fan Run Radio, Knoxville.
Barley's has live music on weekends, general team trivia on Wednesday nights at 8 p.m., and now live sports trivia courtesy of the Knoxville Trivia Guys every Thursday night upstairs. The game starts at 7 p.m. and is free to play for everyone, so head on down to the Old City and show off your sports knowledge and win gift cards to Barley's. Use those gift cards to buy some delicious food and drinks, and you can take it all in with their wide selection of TVs and indoor projectors. Barley's Tap Room and Pizzeria.
Golf Envy Farragut is the premier indoor golf experience you've been looking for. And right now they are offering a limited number of founding memberships. Golfers can reserve their spot for just $150 before their September grand opening. Founding members receive 90 days of unlimited guest passes as well as an exclusive risk-free first month. That's right. Try out Golf Envy with no obligation. Give it 30 days, and if it's not the right fit for what you're looking for, your first month's dues will be refunded. Members will get access to their Golf Zone 2 Vision NX simulator technology, the most realistic simulator on the market, where they can play more than 300 courses and compete in leagues and tournaments with players all across the country. Golf, rain or shine, 24/7, 365. To learn more and become a founding member, visit their website at farragut.golfenvy.com/presale.
Football season is all about winning game plans, and here at Knoxville Smiles, we believe that your smile deserves an all-star game plan too. Whether it's a routine cleaning, whitening, or restoring your confidence, Knoxville Smiles has the experience to keep your smile in championship form. Don't let dental pain blitz your game plan. Call Knoxville Smiles today and schedule your appointment, because a healthy smile is the ultimate home field advantage. Call 865-539-1776 or schedule online at knoxvillesmiles.com.
All right, back here on Overtime. Appreciate you hanging out with us. We're finishing this 12-team playoff bracket that we have. So I have 4 Big Ten teams, and then I have 3 SEC teams. You could switch it. I mean, I could have put Ole Miss ahead of Washington. Now, Washington is going to have to win one of their last 2 games, whether that's when they host Indiana or beat Oregon. I don't think they're going to Eugene and beating Oregon and Autzen. But again, I think they could beat Indiana in Seattle. That could be Indiana's one and only loss. Indiana could be 11-1.
It's just hard for me to think Indiana's going to get caught sleeping.
That's the one game, though, where it could happen. And the other reason why I have Washington is because you look at some of these other fringe teams that I've weighed, and they have tough out-of-conference games. Oklahoma plays Michigan. Michigan plays Oklahoma. So that's a tough out-of-conference game for those 2 teams. Louisville, I could put them in the ACC, but, I mean, they play Ole Miss.
Yeah.
Ole Miss plays Louisville. Like, Washington plays Washington State. I don't think they're going to lose the Apple Cup.
This is what I look at when I see Louisville. They play Ole Miss week 1. That's easily the hardest game they have on their entire schedule. After they play Ole Miss, they play Villanova, SMU, Wake Forest, NC State, Florida State, Syracuse, Stanford, Georgia Tech, North Carolina, Pitt, and then Kentucky. They can win every game on their schedule.
I think the NC State game is losable because I think C.J. Bailey is a really good quarterback.
Yeah, that one's on the road. The Syracuse game on the road kind of
yeah, we'll see what Angeli looks like this season. I mean, I like Fran Brown as a coach, but, I mean, Syracuse they were miserable last season, and they lost 2 of their top receivers. SMU, I think Louisville probably wins that game, being that it's at home in Louisville. But, again, Kevin Jennings Kendrick Raphael, like that's a good offense. They bring over Yannick Smith in the wide receiver room. I think SMU is a good team. I think NC State's a good team. But to your point, I mean, they avoid Miami, they avoid Cal, they avoid Clemson.
Yep.
They do avoid a lot of the contenders. They do play Pitt, though, I believe. That was another game.
Yeah, they play Pitt at home late November.
Pitt's another game that could be – I mean, it depends on what Mason Heichnell looks like, and it depends on what their defense looks like. They lost Rasheem Biles to Texas, who was their top linebacker last season. But again, I think Pat Narduzzi is a guy that you can trust to win – at least 7 games.
Yeah, what I see when I look at Louisville's schedule is I see a favorable outcome with not having to play Miami, Clemson, and I see they don't have to travel out west at all.
That is favorable, not getting Cal.
They get Stanford at home, and then they don't play Stanford or Cal, or they get Stanford at home, then they don't play Cal. So that's a benefit for me. They get to stay in the eastern half of the United States. So I think Louisville again. I think they dropped that Ole Miss game. I think they're 11-1 going into the ACC championship game. I think they drop it to Miami, and then I think they're an 11-2 playoff team.
I just think to me, Ole Miss, A&M, Oklahoma, and LSU are kind of those 4 teams that are like fringe playoff teams in the SEC. Alabama's there too, and Tennessee's there if everything goes right. But like Alabama, to me, they can't effectively run the ball. They still have a quarterback competition. I think Alabama's a 9-3 team. I think LSU's a 9-3 team. I think Ole Miss catches them in Lane's return back to Oxford. If the game was in Baton Rouge, I think Ole Miss would lose, but the game is in Oxford.
Yeah.
The Grove and Vaught Hemingway Stadium on that day is going to be one of the most insane scenes you've ever seen in college football. I think Ole Miss can catch them there, but I just think Ole Miss has a tough schedule. I think they're probably going 9-3 as well. Even if they win that game and they win Louisville, they're 10-2. They're in.
Yeah, and I'll say this because I'm big on Houston, but I have them missing the playoff here. They play a tough Big 12 schedule. They go to Texas Tech in week 3. They play at Utah and later in the season. Then they play at Kansas State. Kansas State's
an underrated team.
Yeah, Kansas State is a team that I'm pretty high on going into this season.
Yeah,
just because they are returning Avery Johnson. I mean, he didn't light the world on fire last year, but Avery Johnson is a guy that's going to go out there and not get you beat.
They got some good pieces coming back.
Yeah,
Joe Jackson's a good running back. They got Coy Beasley, he's a good safety. He comes over from Miami of Ohio. Like I said, though, they lost 2 of those pieces on their interior on the defense, or 1 piece on the interior, 1 piece on the edge.
Yeah, but they're a team that can catch you, especially in their own building, and then they play a Utah team.
My thing is they're either going to beat Texas Tech or Utah, I think. And if you did that, I think you could be a 2-loss team that holds a tiebreaker into the Big 12 championship at that point.
Yeah, but
so
I don't see them beating Texas Tech personally.
Yeah, I think they have a chance. It's in Lubbock though, which is tough.
That's what I'm scared about. I don't see them going into Lubbock. I just don't think Houston's that caliber of team yet to where they can do that.
That's a game where Texas Tech, they probably win in the trenches, but
I don't know how much I trust Connor Wigman going into an environment like that.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the better like Big 12 conference. I mean, that might be the best big, like outside of the Holy War. That's probably right there. Yeah. I mean, BYU, I'm not as high on BYU as some people.
A lot of people are really high on BYU, and I think that's just.
I think BYU's
had success in the past.
I think they're an 8-4 team, maybe 9-3. They just don't have much depth at wide receiver room.
I don't think they're going to be as good as they were last year.
Yeah, I like Bear Bachmeier. I like LJ Martin. I like a lot of the pieces on their defense, but their offensive line's a little bit inconsistent going into the season, and they just really don't have many like trusted wide receivers. They lost Parker Kingston and Chase Roberts. The Parker Kingston one was because of disciplinary reasons, broke the honor code of the school. So, I mean,
say what you want about the honor code.
Yeah, I mean, he had like 800, 900 receiving yards last season. So
that is the one reason I don't have Houston in my. I think they're good enough to make the playoffs, but they get a really tough draw with the Big 12. They play the top 3 big boys in the Big 12.
Yeah.
So
All right, well, that was fun. 12-team college football playoff. Those are our projections, kind of. I'm sure I'll change my projections again before the college football playoff.
I definitely will.
Before the season starts. But, it's talking season. We got, 3 weeks until week 0 comes. Once you get to the college football national space, you want to talk about that type of stuff. So that's what we did. Appreciate you hanging out with us today or this evening on this Wednesday evening here in Knoxville. Overtime. Again, reminder, Smokies night tomorrow night. The drive will be live there 3 to 6 at the Smoky Stadium at Covenant Health Park. Come out, join the Fan Run crew, have some of those half-price domestic draft beers. We'll be out there, and we'll see you guys tomorrow on Overtime.
On the Herd, weekdays at noon Eastern on FS1 and the Fox Sports app.